I want to talk to you a bit about the legal profession. And you've written about ChatGPT and you've written about AI. Are these things threats to the legal profession? Are these things threats to lawyers or the practice of law?
Well, it all depends on what you mean by threat, and it all depends on what future versions are going to be like. I do think that even the current versions might be useful to lawyers who are trying to do kind of a first cut at something, write up a first draft of some inquiry, or my understanding is it's especially useful. The AI program is especially useful for analyzing documents. Like here are thousands of documents. We need to sort them in response to some discovery requests. Let's use an AI program to do that. That doesn't mean that use of it still requires lawyers. It just may require fewer lawyers. So it may be that rather than having a partner and a senior associate and 3 junior associates, and the junior associates write up drafts or do document review, submit it to the senior associate who then reviews that, submits it to the partner. Instead, maybe it'll have the partner and the senior associate. The senior associate runs ChatGPT, creates a draft, and then edits it in light of that senior associate's legal skills, or runs some software to go through a bunch of documents and then reviews that output. So the result may just be fewer lawyers needed on each case. Maybe good for clients because they don't have to pay quite as much money, but maybe not so good for newly minted lawyers because there'll be fewer jobs for them. And as the technology improves, if it does indeed end up markedly improving, so far it has been. ChatGPT 4 is much better than 3.5. You'd think maybe 5 would be better than 4. Humans 4 are not better than humans 3.5, right? We're still at the same level, whereas technology is getting better and better. So it may be at some point you will have a situation where, for a lot of things, a lawyer can run a rough draft, or run the software to do a rough draft, and then just review it a little bit, but bill not a lot of hours because most of the work had been done by the technology. So then it would be even fewer jobs for lawyers. Imagine the following. Imagine, say, in a few years, somebody comes up with a program which is called AI Arbitrator. And it says, look, people, mostly business people, you've got disputes. There are 2 ways you can go. You can submit it to the civil justice system. You're going to get a human judge and a human jury. You're going to resolve the dispute in 3 years. It's going to cost you $300,000. Or you can submit it to my AI arbitrator, basically submit all of your legal filings, submit all of the excerpts of, or not excerpts, all of the deposition transcripts, all of the documents, and you'll get a result in 30 minutes for $3,000. Which would you prefer? Now, I suppose some people may say, well, I want human justice by humans. Okay, you're willing to pay $300,000 for it? Really? All right, maybe. But some of you might say, no, I want accurate results, not perfect results, because no business people think that judges and jurors are perfect, but pretty accurate. I don't want just a toss of a coin. Okay, so imagine that this author of this AI arbitrator program says, well, we actually did a blind test where we had 5 human arbitrators and our program submit an arbitral judgment in a particular case. We had 10 kind of blue ribbon evaluators, retired judges, prominent lawyers, maybe some politicians, who didn't know which of the arbitrators was human and which was AI, evaluate the results. And of those 10, 8 said we prefer contestant number 7. Or excuse me, I said 1 and 5. So contestant number 3. And turns out contestant number 3 was our AI arbitrator. And it's repeatable. Just in test after test, blind test after blind test, it yields results that are at least as good as human arbitrators. Probably many or even as good as human judges and juries. Probably many business people will say, okay, fine, this is worth it for us, and we can provide in our contracts there's going to be a binding arbitration by this AI arbitrator, or even if we have a dispute without such a binding arbitration provision. We just want it resolved quickly and inexpensively. So we're going to agree at the point of the dispute to this binding arbitration. Well, at that point, maybe we won't have human arbitrators anymore because AI arbitrator by hypothesis is better. Maybe you won't even have a lot of lawyers required because maybe the program says you don't need to give us a legal brief. You just give us the documents and we'll resolve that. So if that's so, then a lot fewer lawyers needed. And then what might happen is the taxpayers and litigants in civil and criminal court might say, well, wait a minute, if it's good enough for the business people, why isn't it good enough for us? And for there, you probably would need constitutional changes to authorize trials not by judge and jury, but by AI. But maybe, again, it's all hypothetical at this point. Maybe we'll find that we have replaced the entire justice system, maybe the entire civil justice system or some facets of it. While we're getting there, though, I do think we're going to find that to the extent it's a useful tool for lawyers, it probably means that legal cases won't have to be as heavily staffed as they are now, and therefore there probably will be fewer jobs for lawyers. And that may be bad for the law graduates, maybe really good for the clients.